Yo, my name's Adam Smith. Thank you for checking out my channel. Here we are dedicated to building the most high performance lifestyle and business. We cover a bunch of different topics from habits to rituals to the mindset shifts that needs to happen and all things personal development so that you can live the most sustainable, aligned, and outstanding life possible. This past week, I was able to go to an event that I've been wanting to go to for a very, very long time, and that is Unleash the Power Within with the one and only Tony Robbins. And if you don't know who Tony Robbins is, he is a life strategist. He is basically the one of the biggest coaches in the world right now, and he has been pioneering the coaching industry for about 40 years. He's pretty much who started the coaching industry and like the big boom that's happening right now. I'm a coach myself, a performance and a business coach. So this is one of the most life-changing things that I could potentially go to and go into for myself and for my clients. So I took the opportunity since they were doing it online, which is kind of a first for him, which is the first year because of COVID and all that. And I want to just go over a lot of the things that I learned about myself, about the program, about how to set myself up for high performance through this, and just kind of give my review and whether or not I should recommend if you go to one of his events as well. So, without further ado, let's jump in. So let's dive a little bit deeper into what exactly the format of Unleash the Power Within was. So it is a 4-day event and it goes all day, all 4 days. So the first day we started at 8:30 and we ended at 1:45 in the morning. So like, I don't know, just a ridiculously long day. The second day wasn't as bad. The fourth day wasn't as bad, but the third day was really long as well. I think we went till about 12:30 or something like that. So it was over 50 hours worth of training within those 4 days. We went over all things from limiting beliefs to fears to what kind of drives people to moving forward in their businesses and in their lives, all the way through how to get the most out of the things that we eat and how we move and different patterns and things that we're kind of set in right now and how to break out of those things. I am obsessed with personal development. I'm obsessed with meditation, with what it takes to kind of bring your life to the next level. I've been running my own business for the past 5 years and just really love the area of coaching and that like high performance stuff. So for me, it was really important to learn from the pioneer, which is Tony Robbins. So going to this event was pretty much a no-brainer for me, especially at the price point because it was virtual. It was a little bit less expensive than it would be to obviously go in person. I was able to get my own food, and in terms of speaking of food, eating was basically all done within the program. So you had to eat while you were doing a lot of the learning. There was some little breaks here and there, but it was really nice because I could just throw my headphones on, my Bluetooth headphones on when he was discussing something and go downstairs. We got a workbook that went along with it. Everything went pretty much smoothly. You got broken out into teams. So it was a huge Zoom call with 12,500 of us. And each of us were set into teams of about 300 to 400 people. And so that was our team for the entire weekend. And we did breakout groups within that. And it was just a really powerful experience to have that kind of team. You got to know people, you got to go into breakout groups with people. I connected with a ton of people over Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the social media platforms. I have a bunch of brand new kind of best friends that we all experience the same thing together and are going to be continuing on to do accountability groups and stuff like that moving forward. Now, I'm not a super religious person. I'm pretty spiritual if I kind of needed to segment myself into anything. But I've had two pretty religious experiences in my life. The first one was when I saw a artist called City and Color, which is one of my favorite. I have a bunch of tattoos of City and Color lyrics on my body. The other one was this event. It was nothing short of completely transformational for me. And I've had a lot of people asking me what like my biggest kind of takeaway was from that. And this is it. You know how when sometimes you're writing your affirmations down and you're like, I want to build $1 million business, or I want to help 100 people in my coaching, like in the next month with my coaching, or whatever it is, right? And there is that little voice kind of in the back of your head that says, yeah, that's kind of bullshit. Like, I don't know if you actually can do that. And there's like that fear involved of like, am I enough? Can I actually do this stuff? No matter how many times you write, I'm going to make $1 million. I'm going to make $1 million. I'm $1 million business owner. That little voice in the back of your head, that belief piece has to get shut down. And so after this weekend, this past weekend, that little voice is no longer there, which is really, really, really profound because for a really, really long time, even though I've had success, I've built a business to over 6 figures and I'm living comfortably and I'm able to buy my own house and cars and all this stuff. That little voice was still there. And it was like, how am I going to get to the next level? And it was always there saying like, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. So now that voice is completely gone and I feel completely and utterly limitless in terms of what I can actually do. And the cool part about all this is through my coaching sessions already this week, I have used some of these techniques and really, really helped my clients out. So for me, not only was this a very transformational experience for my personal life, but it's going to be helping my coaching clients moving forward, which is really, really, really cool. So day one was fear into power. And it was all about identifying the fears, limiting beliefs that we have, and giving them kind of a new meaning. We didn't really smash them yet, but we were setting up and getting the ideas that that we needed in order to like build the foundation of these new beliefs. And then on day three, we actually kind of smashed through them. So this event involved a lot of energy. And that was one of the kind of main pillars of all of this is that your physiology, the body that you're in and how you use that body, whether that's dancing, whether that's slamming on your chest, whether that's screaming, how you do those things and how you use your body is how you can break yourself out of the old unempowering habits that are happening. So the first thing that we did when we first logged on every single day was we did some Egoscue, which is it's a company that helps people with like movement and stuff like that. We did some of those, and then we did something called Kinergy, which is like an actual dancing like movement company. They do online stuff, and it was crazy. Like you get up, sit down on the call, and we were up for a really, really, really long time. I think I burned like 3,600 calories the first day. On day three, I actually burned over 4,000 calories going through all the stuff that we were going through. But this first day was like all the foundational pieces that set us up for the next day or the next couple days. Now, I'm not going to be able to go through everything that we went through in all of these because this video would be like 15 hours long, right? But the main, and I have some notes here, so if you see me kind of looking around, that's what I want to make sure that I get all the big points out that I want to go without having to jump cut this a bunch of times. The main idea behind all this was again that energy piece and that physiology piece where you can change your state and how you are based on how you move or what you do. So you can do different movements that can snap you out of things or different movements that can get you into things. And we kind of started building our own toolkit of movements that allowed us to get into good states and out of good states. And day one was really focused on how can we live all of our life in something that Tony likes to call a beautiful state or a peak state. And in order to do that, we have to move around. We have to show ourselves that we have the energy to get through 15-hour days, to get through 50 hours worth of coaching in 4 days. And so while as much of the program, as much of it was that it was like a learning experience. It was also kind of like a boot camp of showing yourself like, yes, I do really have the energy to go through and make all these things, and that it's not um the energy isn't something that just happens, right? You don't just happen to have a ton of energy. You build the energy and you like produce the energy yourself. And that's something, one of the limiting beliefs that I had for a really, really long time is that I just didn't have energy. I wasn't energetic enough to build these things and do all these things and have a coaching company and a marketing agency and do something with clothing and all this. Like I just didn't have enough time to do all that stuff and enough energy to do all that stuff. So this was like a really big learning experience for me, was that I had the energy to get through these long days where I was standing most of the time and I was dancing and I was doing all this stuff. And the idea was to kind of shake us out of our old patterns and get us into what he calls peak state, which I mentioned before. But that is just like the best place to create from, the best place to make decisions from, to shift beliefs from. And it's carried over a lot through this week into my life as well. I feel so much more positive and jump out of bed, and like every little thing that I do, I find myself kind of like dancing or jumping around into it. And some of the moves that I created were cool too, and they're like very, very personal to me. But like to get myself into different states, I can do some jumping around. I can do 3 taps on the chest. I can get one of these. I can do a really fast kind of that, or like an X if I want to kind of, if I find myself like scrolling on Instagram or something like that and I need to change my physiology to get out of that different focus thing. Because a lot of the times in our head, we know, hey, I shouldn't be doing this. I should be doing something else. But if we don't get our body involved, we can't really get out of those different states. We also talked a lot about repetition and how that helps us ingrain different beliefs and different patterns into our lives. And the two ways that we kind of make changes are repetition and intensity. So why not try to do those all at once? So be super, super intense with the things that you're saying, the things that you're doing, and do them over and over and over again to like lock in that you are that person, that those limiting beliefs that you used to have aren't, and these new empowering beliefs are you completely and truly. And by getting your body involved and being super intense with your movements, that's how those things are done. We also went through a bunch of different things, one being the success cycle. We went through something called the triad, and these are all just kind of like modalities and visual representations of how different patterns are broken. I'm not going to go through them all here because I'll probably make separate videos on them, but man, they were really, really, really good to kind of lock in those things. So it's the idea of like what human potential is and what the beliefs and how those beliefs relate to the different actions that we take and all of that stuff. It's super easy to kind of understand, but I don't want to take a ton of time with like kind of the review video of UPW. At the end of day 1, we did something called the board breaking. And so basically what they have you do is write a bunch of limiting beliefs on one side of the board. So those are limiting belief on one side of the board. And then all the things that you want to kind of accomplish, or the I am statements, or I will have an amazing relationship or marriage. I'll be one of the most impactful coaches in the world. I'm 100% worthy of all my successes. I am limitless. And we all broke boards together, which is really, really cool. So we had this huge kind of ceremony at the end of the night. It was actually about 1:30 in the morning, and all of us are screaming in our houses and going through these boards, and everybody's cheering and we're celebrating like crazy. And it was insane because it was like at the end of a 16-hour day and everyone was so pumped to break the boards. Now, I used to do Taekwondo, so I've kicked through and punched through and flipped through so many different kind of boards that it wasn't really that hard for me. I actually just practicing hit my board a little bit, and it kind of cracked and popped through. So I didn't get the full experience, unfortunately, of it, but I ended up taking my board, half of it, and then breaking through that half just like that. So it was super cool for a lot of the people that haven't done something like that before. And the representation of like taking that limiting belief and just completely smashing it was super, super cool. And it was really fun to see some of the people that you could tell that that like really helped sink in the idea of that all these limiting beliefs were such bullshit for them, because they were like so afraid of hurting their hands and doing all this stuff, and we just jazzed our bodies up all day, and just to go crash through those boards was really, really cool to see. Now day two was more of like a work and kind of workbook day. We had done a lot of learning on the first day, and so we were kind of going through his different modalities on how the success works, and given his ultimate success formula, and how clarity is like one of the main things that you need, along with going through um, our wheel of life. So like how balanced were we in our relationships versus our how healthy we are, or our physical body versus our finances versus how much we contribute to different things in society, and all of that stuff. So that was really cool to kind of see and measure where I currently am versus where I want to be. And obviously I want to be a level 10 on all those things, but to just really say, okay, I'm here right now on my physical body, and I want to get to level 10, and really just sit there and think about, okay, well, what things do I need to do in order to get to level 10 on my physical body? Or what things do I need to do to get to level 10 in finances or in my business or whatever? Because a lot of times we don't really think about that stuff. So it was really, really cool to see. Um, and we did a lot of breakout groups that day too, where we broke out and got to share some of our limiting beliefs and what we were passionate about, and what our extraordinary life that we wanted to live was for each other, or with each other. And it was super enlightening to see how many people were kind of in the same spot, or working on the same things, or maybe different areas of their lives, but we were all really wanting to achieve really, really amazing and great things. We also went through something that was really nice to see for me, because I really talk about momentum all the time. So we went through his idea of what momentum means, and what you can do to like keep yourself in momentum. And a lot of that again was had everything to do with, you can't really make or do great things outside of a peak or beautiful state. So one of the things that really sunk home and like punched me in the face was he was talking about being like a level 5 energy. And he like goes up really, really close to the camera, and he goes, for all those people that are in business, that are coaches and service providers and all of that stuff, he gets really close and he says, if you're constantly at a level 5 energy level, would you work with you? And I'm like, fuck. Of course I wouldn't work with me. Why would I hire somebody that's a level 5 energy all the time? Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense, so that I can get up to a level 5 energy. And I think that was one of the most profound moments in the entire weekend, was in order to really build my business and get my business to the level that I want to be, I have to be at that high level at all the time. Not in a pressure way. I don't feel pressured at all to be in that high of a level all the time, but it made me realize, like, yeah, if I show up on camera not at a high level, why would anybody want to fucking work with me? And I think like you could see everybody, and when he said that, everybody was like, holy shit. Do I want to be a level 5 dad? Do I want to be a level 5 business owner? Do I want to be a level 5 anything? Like, this sucks. Like, why would anybody want to be a level 5 anything? Everybody should want to be a level 10 everything. And that really like hit me super, super hard. Then the last part of day two was really cool, but I didn't think it was all that necessary in this kind of framework that we were talking about. And we were talking about teams and business. And the teams part was also had to do with like rapport and how to read other people's body language. And something that Tony's really, really good at is reading people's body language. And that's how he understands whether their state has changed, um, in order, like, and he knows at that point that you can like really hit them with the good stuff, because if their state changes, goes up or down, you know that you kind of struck a chord with them. So the ideas within that were stuff like mirroring and a bunch of different rapport techniques, which was cool, but I didn't necessarily think it was all that necessary. And there was a lot of selling that happened on day 2 as well, in terms of upselling you into different programs. There's something called Business Mastery and Date with Destiny, other programs that he has that are at a much higher price point. I didn't sign up for any of those personally because I feel like I know what I need to do in order to get to a certain level currently, and I was just okay with not investing right now. I have a coach that I work with all the time and all that stuff, so it doesn't really matter. It didn't really appeal to me at the time, but it's one of those things that I definitely want to do in the future. But there was a lot of people that were kind of upset with the idea that he was selling and upselling. As a marketer and a business owner, I know how important that is. Like when somebody's in a peak state, right? You want to sell them something because they're having a really good time. It's super transformational. And so why not sell them something? I mean, it makes sense, right? In order for you to do that. So a lot of people were kind of upset, but I understood. And even within like the sales pitch, there was a lot of really interesting things that were said that kind of made me think a little bit differently about my business and how the personal aspects go directly into the business aspects. Day 3, which he called Transformation Day, and I will fucking 100% agree with that. Day 3 was the combination and everything coming together of the past 2 days, and it ended up being like most of the third day too. So it was like basically like 3 days worth of learning and reprogramming ourselves to be in a peak state and like be super fucking amped and just jacked up for 3 days straight, and like everybody's sleeping a little bit less, but everybody still has a bunch of energy, and everybody's hydrating and eating, and we're doing all this stuff, and it's just was such a great, like, he has such a well thought out idea of like how these things need to stack on top of each other to have like the most profound like experience possible. And so we started that day, same with the movement stuff and dancing. And then Tony came back out and was like super, super crazy. And now he doesn't do all 4 days because he has some issues with his throat. So he doesn't do all 4 days. He just does day 1 and day 3, which are like the two kind of heavy lifting in terms of like motivation, high energy days that need to happen. So towards the end of the night on day 3 was he Tony walked us through something called the Dickens process. And I don't know where this necessarily originated or if he started or whatever, but we wrote down our top 3 limiting beliefs about everything that we believed in our lives. The top 3 things that were kind of holding us back. And we went through this process of writing down those along with the negative beliefs that we have, and like what the negative outcomes of those beliefs would be. And we went through this super, super intense process where we all closed our eyes and we kind of thought about the best possible scenario in 5-10 years of the things that we happen. So what do our extraordinary life look like in the next 5-10 years? And we all stood there and just felt what it would feel like. We felt the gratitude, we felt the experiences, and he had us go through like, okay, well, if you were making this much money, how could you celebrate that with your spouse or whatever? So we got us into this like super, super emotional state, right? Of this like all this great stuff. And then he took us to the negative side. and he had us write down the worst possible things that could happen if we didn't like fix those negative beliefs or overcome those negative beliefs. So like for me, it was losing my house and my cats and not being able to get this dog that we're about to adopt, and losing my fiance and soon to be wife, Leah, and having to live out of my car, and or having to live back home with my parents at 38, and like all this horrible, 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 just awful. It just felt gross. Like I'm standing there and I'm like starting to cry a little bit of like all this crazy, awful stuff. And then he brought us through this process of just like feeling how bad that would feel, because a lot of why we don't change certain behaviors is because we don't put enough pain towards them, and we don't think far enough out of how that pain is going to kind of manifest by us continuing to scroll on TikTok, to continuing to not eat healthy, continuing to neglect our relationships. And so he basically gave us what's the best case scenario and what's the worst case scenario. And at the end of the process, well, actually in the middle of the process, he basically said, okay, you're at 10 years, all this awful shit has happened to you. Make the sound that you would make if all of these things were happening to you, or if that version of you was standing right in front of you and you're just looking at that person. What would you say to that person? And I want you to make it as loud as you possibly can and yell and scream and holler. And the only thing that I could think of was just screaming, fuck you, to that piece of shit version of myself that let all of the things that I loved slip away. And I'm crying and I'm screaming, fuck you, and I'm just going fucking crazy up in my room all by myself with all the lights off and just feeling horrible, horrible, horrible. So he had us go through that, and he's like, okay, just keep feeling it, just keep feeling it, just keep feeling it. What would you say to that person? What would you say to that person? Over and over and over again. We probably did this for, I don't know, probably about 30 to 45 minutes. And then he goes, okay, everybody kind of jump, like move around a little bit. Now, forget about all that stuff, because all of those limiting beliefs are going to be behind you. Say you're stepping into 10 years from now and it's your extraordinary life that we talked to with all those great emotions and all that stuff. He's like, and make it fucking real. And everybody just went fucking crazy. And like, so we went from like the deepest, darkest, me slunched down on the ground, crying, like yelling fuck you to myself, to like celebrating getting over these horrible, horrible limiting beliefs. And at that point is when that little voice in the back of my head no longer existed. And that was so freaking profound to me that I'm going to try and figure out some way to like incorporate that into my coaching. I kind of knew that everybody goes away from pain and towards pleasure, but I didn't really have a modality to kind of push people into that point. But that was so profound, and almost like it was almost like an out of body experience for me. And it was really, really scary thinking about, oh my gosh, I could just like flush this entire life away. But it was also super empowering knowing that I can, if I ever start to get those limiting beliefs again, then I can kind of run myself through this same process. Now, day 4 was called like the Vitality Day, and that was probably the least intense day of them all. There was some guest speakers. He had Dean Graziosi come out. He had the celery juice guy come out. I forget what his name was. He had the Jamie from, she had It Cosmetics that she just sold to L'Oreal, I think, which is a crazy, for like $1.2 billion. And like her journey kind of started with listening to Tony Robbins tapes and like going to UPW, and just went through all these things that it kind of takes to keep this energy up in terms of like our physical body. So how much hydration we should get, and and his ideas on what we should eat for our diets and make sure that it's living foods and how much uh, like different proteins and macronutrients we get. And it was kind of a like a 101 of like, hey, here's how you can keep this sustained energy and vitality in your life through all this. And it was all really, really, really great material. And he gave us a little challenge at the end to do 10 days of like no sugar, no caffeine, all this stuff. Um, and it's changed how I've eaten a little bit. Now, instead of just having like a bowl of chili or some eggs or something like that in the morning, I'm having a bunch more fruit. And some people don't like, some people are like carnivore diet or keto or whatever the fuck. But I've never really experimented with my diet to the point where I've stuck with it long enough to kind of feel how I felt with like the energy levels and stuff like that. So that was like super profound for me, even though it wasn't like a big crazy high energy day. We got a ton of information. The one downside, which I almost checked out, and there was a like right in the middle of the day, he put on this video of this podcast that he did about COVID. And I have very, very specific views on COVID and masks and lockdowns. And I feel like we should probably do whatever the fuck it takes in order to like stop this thing from spreading. And I wear a mask when I'm outside. Um, if I'm around somebody, I put it on. If I go to a store, I put it on. It doesn't really fucking change my life. I got some really cool ones that show my personality. I got one that says Cleveland against the world on it from one of my favorite brands, Ilfie. And like, I just don't really give a fuck about wearing the masks because to me, it's not really that big of a deal. But the information that he was giving about coronavirus was from May. And right now, if you're watching this later on, we are in a huge fucking spike of coronavirus cases, and people are starting to get really, really sick. And people all talk about the death rates and the death rates and the death rates and the death rates. And for me, the death rates is not what fucking scares me because I know it's a bunch of older people that are dying. But for me, it's the long-term things such as brain fog and some of these cognitive issues that people keep having. And I was fucking livid. I was livid at this thing. Him presenting this information that I've heard all before and I've kind of done my own research on it. And obviously, when you're talking about something and you have a certain view, it's good to have that polarizing view also. But I've gone through all that stuff. It was 5, 6 months ago that this particular video that he created was was made. So I just yeah, it was really hard to kind of sit through that. I didn't really enjoy that part as much. But then at the end of the night, the very, very last thing we did was he brought out a guy named Master Co, which I've never heard of Master Co before. He's like a spiritual meditation teacher. And he went and brought us through this like unbelievably peaceful, inspiring meditation where Tony's wife even came out and started chanting with him. And it was this really powerful come together moment of all of us just all kind of meditating together, doing this kind of like energy work where we were trying to channel energy and whether or not you believe in all that stuff or anything like that. I'm kind of a sucker for it. And kind of channeling all of that energy into just these awesome, like, just huge energy shift I felt in me. And just trying to channel that to everybody else and all living things within this world right now that are having kind of a hard time. So that was a really cool way to kind of end it. We ended it with Tony coming out and us doing like our final kind of pump up, and then it was just over, which was really, really, really strange. Day four, it was just over, and we kind of sat in our Zoom call, and everybody connected for the final time, and we logged out at around like 11 something at night. And we had been kind of jumping around and learning all this stuff since 9, and yeah, it was just done. It was really, really strange because normally when you go to conferences like that and it's done, you can go and be like go to the bar, let's say, or like a restaurant, and you'll see people from your groups and you can like still talk to them, and it kind of lingers on a little bit. And this was just like done. Just walked downstairs and I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to bed now. And like 4 days worth of all this crazy stuff, everything swimming around in my brain, trying to like get everything out on paper and in my notes and like all of this stuff. And it was just done. So it was a very, very strange kind of experience to have it all be over. So I know this went on a little bit long, and that's okay because it's a YouTube video and you can watch it at 2x if you really, really wanted to. But my final thoughts are that this was one of the most profound experiences of my entire life. I will probably do it again, just as a refresher. I am currently doing, I bought some of Tony Robbins tapes, so I'm doing those every morning to keep momentum. And I'm starting to understand that what I need to kind of keep pushing things forward is this constant, not necessarily pressure, but this constant like learning, this continued learning and continued and continued and continued. So I'm starting his tapes and I'm going to start living by something that he refers to as net, which is no extra time, which means when you're putting dishes away or cleaning or doing laundry or anything like that, to have headphones in or some sort of podcast or book on tape or Audible or some sort of learning happening when you're doing all those things, because when you're moving your body, it's locking more of those things kind of into your body. So if you are interested in doing UPW, it is super, super profound. And I suggest that you do it, especially if you are making a change in your life, kind of like I was. I'm moving what I do with my coaching a little bit, and just do it because it made a huge difference in my life. It's going to make a huge difference in my clients' lives because I'm going to be able to bring a lot of what I learned to my coaching. And it was just fucking fantastic. It really, really was. And I feel so much better and more empowered to live an outstanding and limitless life with myself and my fiance and my family. And like everything that I'm doing feels so much better and more within my power now. And I'm hoping that I can continue to not only do that for myself, but do that for everybody here on YouTube and also everybody that goes through any of my coaching programs, because it was just such a great experience for me. So if you like this video, please, and you're at the end here, I am so, 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 so grateful for you. I know a lot of my friends wanted to hear about my experience, so here it is. Sorry it was fucking long. That's just me. If you know me for any length of time, you know that I love to gab a little bit. So sorry, it's probably going to be pretty long. But like and comment below on what you kind of thought, or if there's anything that I said that you would like me to go into deeper detail, I would absolutely love to do that. So this is me signing off. I love you all. Thank you very much. And we will be seeing you very, very soon.